I see it streaming. I was having a little trouble setting my YouTube channel to the new Restream events now. I'm not sure if it's working now, but I'm going to the regular place though. So hopefully this is working. Let's see, Facebook. Let's check YouTube. My YouTube channel to. Okay, that sound right. Okay, good. My news feed. So if anybody actually, I got my Zoom thing ready. So if you really want to get on, let me know, and I'll see if I can't just invite you in. I should be able to. I keep screwing this up, but I think I can do this. Let's see. I'm just getting this ready. Sorry, just picking a couple places here. Yeah, the new Facebook is really crazy slow. It's kind of mind-blowingly lame. So we'll just see. See who's all going to jump on this thing. I'm kind of tripping out on just how broken this stuff has become. It's something else. So we'll be going in just a second here. A couple more seconds. Okay. So this should be working. Let's see. We'll see. Let me go shut this AC off. Keep trying different places to put this mic on. Okay, so welcome to Dropping in a Pipeline Audio. This is number 85, and I guess this is you can't mix on headphones. All right. So first of all, I mean, I don't have nothing super clever going on here. If you haven't seen all the hype on Facebook this week was Steven Slate's VSX headphone system. Is that what it's called? Let's let me find them. Slate VSX. Yep. So let me pull this up. Okay, Perfect Mixes just got easier. The VSX headphone system allows you to create your room in precise models of pro mixing studios, mastering rooms, car stereos, nightclubs, audiophile mix rooms, boom boxes, and more from anywhere in the world. Rent to own for $40 a month. So as far as I can tell, this is like SonarWorks and the others, where they take the frequency response of your headphones and null it out, so they kind of flatten it and then apply whatever response they want. Like you could be thinking you're listening to NX10s and I guess adding room sounds to it. One of the problems was always cross feedback from ear to ear. I think it adds that. Let's see. Let's see, VSX headphones, jaw-dropping sub-lows. That's interesting. So it apparently it starts out with some really expensive headphones, and then they flatten them out, and then I don't know. You add some impulse response. I think it's got some other tricks. Now, there are other. Of course, out there, Waves has a system like this. I think it's called NX. SonarWorks has their reference system thing where you tell it what headphones you're using, and SonarWorks software will null it out for you and apply your whatever sound you want. There's a lot of systems out there that do this. I wouldn't be surprised that the Slate one is a lot more comprehensive, and they had a lot of people testing it and using it and stuff. But the funny thing to me is, of course, you just head down to GS, and look at them raving about this. So a lot of people that you're going to see on Facebook and in the forums raving about this stuff. Just last year, I remember, because Brandon Hires was going around showing mixing on headphones, and what's the guy's Sheps? Andrew Sheps, is that his name? Had famously mixed some hits on a laptop on headphones, and Brandon was showing different things. I think he was showing SonarWorks as an example of a system to use this, and I actually went out and bought some AKG 240s and tried it out with SonarWorks. I still use something similar at home. We talked about, in fact, on one of these episodes just recently, we talked about a free correction setup using an EQ or an impulse response. The funny thing to me with this is that the people that you see raving about this, just absolutely out there, just stark raving mad about this, just last year when Brandon was talking about this, were insisting that you could not mix on headphones, no matter what. They don't care how good the headphone technology comes. They don't care how much the software. Oh, you can't correct for this in software. And they were just, I'm telling you, go look at some of the names. I don't want to get nailed for doxing or whatever, but I think you're going to be kind of cracking up when you see some of the names that are raving over this thing that we're just talking about how you absolutely positively could not mix in headphones. So it's pretty funny. I think these things are like $500. Let me let's see, $479. So $480 from Sweetwater. Of course, Kenny Gioia weighed in, and it's love hate with, I wouldn't say hate, love disappointment with Kenny sometimes. But Kenny said something like, if you just give me $500, I'll mix your album for you. And the funniest part about that is the guy's like, somebody answered him back. Would you give me an example of one of the gold albums you mixed before? And Kenny says, just gold, or can I say platinum? Or can I list my platinum albums as well? That's your Kenny snark, but it's true. You don't know who it is on the internet that you're talking to half the times. So anyway, I think I talked about this last week, but this is the hype going on right now, is with these things. Yeah, Kenny was really funny about it. Sorry, I'm trying to catch up here. The best part to me with this is that it appears that you have to have an iLok to really use these things. And so I'm just cracking up that you pay $500 plus you need an iLok to use these headphones. I'm sure they're fine, and this technology is just going to get better and better. But it's just cracking me up about the difference between the true believers and what they were saying just a year ago and what they're saying now. So anyway, on to the next thing. We got a new version of Reamp last night from Audio Assault. I don't think this is the official release yet, but I'm talking about it anyway. It's pretty good. If you really like your amp simulators and you don't want to, you want to stick with your software, you want to play with your guitar through your computer or whatever, this is good. We constantly talk about bias effects, which has been my favorite since forever, but it's just kind of getting too sketchy to use. I've got a powerful computer, and it struggles with bias effects too. It struggles with bias effects 1, struggles with bias amp. we did a couple shows where we showed just how much hash it writes into the project files, and that's got to be a huge part of the problem, probably coming from copy protection. But the real-time CPU use on BiosFX, it's high. It's really high, and it precludes you from using it in a lot of tracking situations. And but this is kind of the issue on a lot of these things. So hopefully you get something that uses a little bit less. Revolver it continues to be developed, but for the most part, Revolver's kind of sat still for about 10 years, but it still sounds very real to me. I really like Revolver. But now with Reamp, you don't quite have as many effects, even some of the basic ones, as BiosFX does, but the CPU use, the real-time CPU use, the amount that it writes into your project file is very little. I mean, you're not going to have any problems running Reamp inside a live session, even at really low latencies, and that's where it's really shining. So Reamp, expect it to be released any day now, and expect it to probably get better and better and better as time goes on. I mean, that's just Alex tends to write very well software-wise, so I expect this thing to keep running as well as it's running now. So that is on its way. So really happy about that. Okay, so next thing is I've been letting questions pile up, so I'm just going to try and fly through these. So how do I connect a TS Jack dynamic microphone to a PC? Is there any external sound card available that accepts a TS Jack? Almost any audio interface that I can think of. Most of them have 1/4-inch jacks. Maybe they only have 1/4-inch jacks. Some of them are TRS, tip ring sleeve. Some of them are TS, so just the tip sleeve, the signal in the ground. And then some of them are XLRs, and some of them are combo jacks, which will take an XLR or a 1/4-inch. Sometimes the circuitry on the combo jack is differently. Like if you plug into the 1/4-inch, it actually switches out the mic preamp and switches to something else, to a line input. Generally, though, I think that in the old days, the TS jacks are going to be like a high impedance microphone output, whereas the XLRs tend to be the low impedance outputs. I don't know if we want to do a deep dive into microphone impedance right now, but you're probably going to find a way to plug. If I were to take one of these crappy karaoke mics around here that people always end up leaving here somehow, and I plug it straight into a line input on a modern mic preamp, you can actually turn it up loud enough where it's going to work. I know it's completely wrong. You're not supposed to use it that way, whatever. It'll work. It might be a little bit noisier. You might lose a little bit of frequency response. Actually, I don't even think that's going to happen. So you can plug that mic in, nobody's going to die. Ideally, you're going to have a mic with an XLR output on it. You might even be at a point where you can open up this microphone and see if it's actually got a transformer in the first place. You might be able to make your own balanced output, but in general, until you got the money to buy a microphone with an XLR on it, just go ahead, plug it into any old audio interface. You're probably going to want to turn the instrument switch off if you're, most of these like Focusrites and things like that have for their line input, they'll have a switch that goes between instrument and regular line input. Try it both ways. See if one of them works better than the other. So you might be surprised. I wouldn't worry about it. If you're at that level where that's the only microphone you've got, any of the regular audio interfaces that you're probably going to run into, that's the Focusrite Scarlett series, the Behringer UMC series. And again, when we're talking Behringer, make sure, go on Behringer's website and check and make sure that it's got actual ASIO drivers for it, not ASIO for all. The Behringer audio interfaces with ASIO actually perform pretty well. If you go to my my chart, the round trip latency roundup, you'll see that the Behringers actually do decently. So don't let the name Behringer throw you off. And if you're sitting there with the TS jack on your mic anyway, you're not in any position to judge. Sorry. But the Behringers, the PreSonuses, the Zooms, the Audient, all your entry-level interfaces, and don't let me say, when I say entry-level, it doesn't mean you can't make perfectly good sounding recordings on them at any level. You're probably gonna have a 1/4-inch jack on it, so you can use that. Don't worry about it. Just plug it into your interface and go. And that was an extremely excessively long-winded, bloviated response. Let me go on to the next one. Why is the uncertainty of analog instruments are half of their least count, while for digital instruments it is their least count? Is this asking about quantization? I don't know. I think, are you asking about quantization of distortion? I'm really not sure. With an analog instrument, you basically, all right, pedants out there. Yes, in quantum mechanics, analog signals are not continuous. Okay, but for the real world that you're dealing with, the analog signals are continuous, while the digital, your analog to digital converter, you're going to run into your bottom limit at your quantization. So the last bit that you could really trust is 1 bit above the bottom bit, right? I mean, it's like if you used to have a 4-bit signal, you would have a theoretical 24-bit dynamic range. You probably want to trust down to 18 decibel range is where you would trust it. I might have that completely wrong, so if I do, sue me. But that's I'm not sure about the wording of this question here. Sorry. What are the differences between a DAW and a VST, and what are some good examples of these softwares? Now, it wouldn't be so long ago where you'd say, what are you talking about? That's like saying, what's the difference between a car and a refrigerator? But it's not so silly anymore. Remember when we were developing Reaper, Fruit Loops was what they call it, Fruity Loops. Now they call it FL Studio. We were talking to them, and people wanted to use Reaper with Fruity Loops, and Justin made Reroute, which would allow you to use it as a dummy sound card, kind of like Rewire. In fact, Reroute was made because the Rewire guys, Propeller Heads, wouldn't get back to us about their SDK, so we didn't. But by the time we released Reaper, I think we had Rewire. They had gotten back to us, but we'd already made Reroute, and people really liked Reroute, so we kept it. So that was the idea, was to reroute Fruity Loops to use as the ASIO outputs of Fruity Loops. You're going to choose the Reroute ASIO driver. But the guys who made Fruity Loops Image Line, they had another idea, which was absolutely genius, and they made you could run Fruity Loops as a VST inside another DAW. That was smart. That was amazing. So I guess the line is a little bit blurry. And there's other things like Harrison Mixbus where, it really is a DAW, but you're kind of using it as a VST. You're using it because it allegedly will modify your sound. But anyway, so a DAW is a digital audio workstation. It's somewhat equivalent to the old days mixer and multi-track recorder and your Razor Blade, your audio editor. Also your patch bay, and you would patch in effects or inputs or outputs. And one of the types of effects that you would patch in if you're going to stay on the computer and not go back to the hardware world is VST, which Steinberg made, stands for Virtual Studio Technology, I think. So it's really just an effect format. It's a plugin format. Sorry, not an effect format. There was VST, there's DirectX, there is audio units on Mac, LADSPA, I think, is the Linux version, and Pro Tools had RTAS, Real-Time Audio Suite, as well as TDM. Not sure if there's new kinds of Pro Tools stuff. I'm not sure, but these are all just formats. So these are standards that you write a plugin for, and they have some slight differences. Throw out the Pro Tools stuff, but on the regular DAWs, they do have some slight differences, but they generally have an input and they have an output. Sometimes they can send control signals. Sometimes they can have a MIDI input. Sometimes they can have a MIDI output. So that's what VST. VST is a plug-in format. So you might have virtual instruments like your virtual drum machines, and otherwise it's virtual effects like your guitar amps, like Reamp we were just talking about is a VST. I think it's available in other formats as well. And some good examples of these, I'd say Reaper's a good example of a DAW. GarageBand sort of fits the definition of a DAW, or I guess it totally fits it. I just wouldn't recommend it. Pro Tools is a DAW. Pyramix. Oh man, I'm really reaching. What was Bob Lentini's one? Saw is a DAW. Fruity Loops is a DAW and a VST. Audacity is a DAW. Tons of DAWs out there. The VSTs, all the Steven Slate VSTs, our company, AIX DSP, we make VSTs. Waves, is famous for making VSTs. So that's some examples, and that's what they are. Okay, does someone know if it is possible to send an audio track to my own email box to prove who that song is mine after I have registered it on PRS for Music, or do I need to send to my email a music sheet too? I mean, the audio track, is it enough? I wonder, first of all, if this is, this of course this is a modern take on the old idea that you could mail yourself your music in a sealed envelope and that'd be good enough for copyright. We always say it's not necessarily good enough. Look, you can certainly prove that you had something earlier by, or it's good evidence anyway that you have this email and it contains that song. I'd still, something like DistroKid or whatever, get it on there. You have a little ways of proving that you had that song ahead of time. There's numerous ways to protect yourself, but I had to look up what this PRS for Music is, and so here it is right here. PRS for Music, what we do, we pay royalties to our members. It seems like there's some kind of like performance rights organization, but online. I'm really not too sure about them. I just use DistroKid. I do have, did I have ASCAP or BMI? I don't even remember. I always tell people, if you're really going to be serious about this, you probably want to still get on a performance rights organization. Okay, so here it is. PRS for Music is the home of the Performing Rights Society and the Mechanical Copyright Protection Society. PRS pays royalties to our members when their works are broadcast on TV or radio, performed or played in public, or streamed or downloaded. So this seems to be doing the work of both a traditional PRO like ASCAP and BMI and something like DistroKid. This is interesting. So, I have no idea about them. This is the first time I heard about them, so I'm not sure what you pay. Let's see, payment dates. I'm not sure how you buy in. But if I were this guy, I'd still email myself my sheet music, but it looks like you're pretty serious to get on one of these things already, so I don't know that I would worry about that much. I wonder why you'd even need to email yourself when you have one of these things, but hey, if you do multiple things, you've really shown your due diligence, so I'd email the sheet music too if you have sheet music. Why not? If you have sheet music, yes, definitely email yourself all this stuff. And then hopefully your email server keeps this for a long time. So email some friends too, I would say. But, I'm not a music business lawyer, so don't take my advice. How come GarageBand doesn't transfer my music to my music library? Two things here. I don't know, and I'm plead with you, please don't use GarageBand. Just don't do it. I know it's really cool because it's so simple to get up and running with this thing, but getting your individual tracks over to other people is such a pain. I'm not going to deal with it. I mean, if you want to send me tracks you got in GarageBand, render them out into stems or whatever, I'm fine with that. But really, if you want to work with other people, don't use GarageBand. All the other DAWs will find a way to work with each other, except for maybe Pro Tools, which even then I think it kind of does. So please, just don't use GarageBand. I don't know why it doesn't go to your music library, and honestly, I don't care, because I really think you get away from there as fast as you can. Please. Okay, how can I record audio and a microphone at the same time? Well, technically, microphones record audio. I'm not sure what you're trying to do. If you're trying to do like a loop back, good luck. Use Voicemeeter or something like that and do your loop back with that. Otherwise, whatever I guess you're just asking, you need a 2-channel interface. You can plug a microphone into it and something else into it. But yeah, if you want to do some loopback stuff, remember last week we were talking about ASIO Link Pro, or I think we were. I hope we were, because that ended up being really cool software. Or maybe I talked about it the week before. Yeah, ASIO Link Pro turned out to be pretty good. That seems to work. But Voicemeeter virtual audio cable, you can do loopbacks with that. But every single episode we talk about loopbacks, and I think people are sick to death of that until I have some real news about that. Okay, how do I set up? Okay, this rant mode on. How do I set the Shure SM7B cardioid vocal dynamic microphone up? What does it require? Okay. I'll give you the basic setup first. You put the microphone on a stand. You plug it into an audio interface, and you adjust the gain, and then you hit record. And that's how you set it up, just like any other microphone. The reasons it's going to be a little bit different I know I've ranted about this a million times on this show. Why do you think you need an SM7B? Because every forum neophyte out there, every marketing shill, every marketing victim is constantly saying that you need an SM7, you need an SM7. If you're going to be talking, you need an SM7. If you're going to be singing, you need an SM7. Michael Jackson used an SM7. Do you need an SM7? I don't think you do. You might, if you really want an SM7, go get an SM7. Make sure you know that you need this microphone. There are much cheaper microphones that will work way better in so many cases than the SM7 will. If you're really sure you need an SM7, you need an SM7. I doubt you need an SM7. If you need an SM7, you would not be asking this question at all. I'm sorry to put it that way, but it's true. If you need an SM7, you wouldn't have to ask. And chances are you really don't need an SM7. So the issues you're going to run into with an SM7 are that they just are amazingly low gain. They put out very little output. You're gonna, so these things got super popular, and we've talked about these a billion times, so I'm not going to go over it again, but you need some kind of, either you need a mic preamp that can handle a whole lot of gain, and if you do have one of those mic preamps, you wouldn't be asking this question either. I hate to say it like that, because I hate that. There's things like if you have to ask, you can't afford it kind of questions, which isn't true usually, but usually if you had enough gain here, you wouldn't be asking about an SM7. You'd have some bajillion-dollar mic preamp that you probably don't need either. So the other thing is the all the rave are the Cloudlifter, the Cathedral pipes. I think there's a couple others out there. I think Studio Projects makes one or something, where it's basically a gain booster that goes between your mic and the mic preamp. And we've said it on a couple shows like this. Haven't done super good tests, but we did some preliminary testing that you'd end up, if your mic preamp can turn it up enough, you'll actually end up with a better signal just cranking your mic preamp up. But some mic preamps, like I'm speaking through this. In fact, I'm talking through an RE20 right now, and we've had several shows early on where I was using an SM7, and this I've got a Focusrite Scarlett Octopre dynamic cranked all the way. You're listening to me talking with the mic preamp up all the way through this RE20, and it's barely making a blip on Reaper. Where's it getting to? Like minus 20 or so. So that's all the way up. So that's the pain in the butt that you're going to be dealing with when you're buying an SM7. So again, make sure you need an SM7. I doubt, go ahead, tell me the advantages that you're looking for with an SM7. We'll see if they're actually true. But if you do get one, just realize you're going to have to add a ton of gain to it, unless you're yelling into it. If you're yelling into it, fine, don't worry about it. But again, I can't stand the people who try to just they pretend to know what they're talking about, and they tell these noobs that they got to spend $5,000 on mic preamps and stuff. You don't have to. You probably don't need an SM7, but that's how you set it up. You plug it into your audio interface and you go. And you're probably going to need to plug in one of these Cloudlifters or something like that. Okay, how can I make a cheap mic sound professional? Okay, of all the arguments, we're going to say what does professional mean or whatever when you hear half the stuff you hear out there. But, have a professional sing into it. That's how you make a cheap mic sound professional. A good singer is going to sound awesome through an SM57 or 58 or any old cheapo microphone. You'd have to have a really crappy microphone to make them sound absolutely awful. And even then, it might be the right sound for the song. So if you want to make a cheap mic sound good, get a professional to sing into it. And then there's the obvious stuff, make sure you're pointing the mic in the right direction. That's important. And how many videos have you seen where that's not been the thing? Don't eat the mic. Don't cup the mic. Don't do dumb things with the mic. Do proper gain staging. Like if you're going through a whole bunch of different amplifiers, make sure you've got them at the right gains before it gets into your recording device. But basically, don't use a mic like an idiot and put a good source in front of it, and it'll sound professional. For the most part, oh man, I'm going to get nailed for this, but for the most part, even the experts can't tell the difference between a cheap mic and a super good mic in many cases. Before the flames come in, that's all I'm going to say about that one. How do I fix, smoothen the choppy, lagging, crackling audio from a video using an Audition? In Audition. Are you talking about Audition software like Cool Edit? Another fine Arizona product, by the way. Yeah, I have no idea. If it's chopping, lagging, and cracking, you could go in by hand and fix all the gaps and then use some kind of declipper tool. I'm sure Audition actually has something like that, and hope, but it's still going to suck. It's going to suck horribly. I would doubt you're really going to do much to really fix it up, but I'm sure all the RX-7 guys will weigh in and say that it could easily do it perfectly. So maybe ask one of the RX-7 guys. That's Isotope RX-7. Oh, by the way, Isotope, you remember I had the very first endorsement on your website talking about your EQ when Ozone first came out, and one of you guys said, thanks for the endorsement and posting into the forums. I'll give you everything we ever make for free in the future. I wonder if anybody remembers that, but that would be awesome if you did, because man, some of this stuff is expensive. So hey, Isotope, if you're out there, I'd love that free stuff. Yeah, I'll give you all our stuff for free. How about it? Is Audacity better than Adobe Audition? you know, I don't know. Audacity is cool. It's free. Audition is cool at it. I will almost guarantee you Audition is going to have way, 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 way better forensic audio tools than Audacity does. But I think it's subscription now. So I'd say that, yes, Adobe Audition is much better, but you're going to pay the price for it. I really hate that you get what you pay for stuff, and I'll usually recommend people free things. And lots of times when the free things work better than the paid things, and that happens a whole lot more than you'd think. But Audacity has many, many limits to it. So I don't recommend it. In fact, I mean, if you're going to talk about free software right now, Cakewalk is free now, and it comes with everything. So you want to use free stuff, go get Cakewalk. If you're trying to do forensic audio, you may want to pay for Audition. RX7 is supposed to be really good at that too, but I haven't been able to really do as much with RX7 as you would think. Really, for free for forensic audio, Wavesaur is actually pretty good. Let me see if they're still making this thing. Wavesaur.com. Yeah. WAVOSAUR.com. I'm still using this. Let's look at their page. I don't know if it's for Windows or if it's for Mac. I know it works on Windows for free. It's pretty cool. Go check out Wavesaur if you're on Windows at least. I'm not sure if it works on Mac. Okay. What is the best DAW I should use? Boy, I can't answer this, right? I'm a little bit, what do you say, biased? So, yeah, I would go use Reaper if I were you. But, oh, look, somebody answered. Reaper, it's the one run by an ethical company for the benefit of its users over profits. I like that answer. But, like I just said, Cakewalk is free now, too. So you might want to go check that out. Whatever it is, don't use GarageBand. I beg you, don't use GarageBand. Please don't use GarageBand. Okay, what kind of drum set should I get that doesn't take up too much space? It kind of doesn't matter how many drums you put on your set. You can make it way bigger if you go crazy, like Neil Peart or something. But in general, drums are going to take up a lot of space. And I don't worry about the space. Worry about the volume level and if your neighbors are going to put up with you. I can't imagine a time when you really be worried about space with the drum set. I'd really be worried about the acoustics. If you really want a drum set that doesn't take up too much space, go get like a little a beater and a sensor for it, and a volume, like a volume control, a MIDI volume controller, and then just plug in, get some drum pads or something and plug it into your computer and play some VSTIs. That won't take much space up at all. A lot of people do that with their fingers and drum pad things like a Kai MPCs or whatever, and they just use their foot for their beater, and you can do that. I don't know. I don't think space is really the thing I'm going to worry about too much with the drums, but one of those little trigger finger setups is going to take up the least space. But if you want to feel like you're playing a real drum, the electronic drum sets really aren't that much smaller. But, go get a Cajon. That takes up very little space. Why don't people buy large equipment anymore? Well, some people do, but in general, we don't need gigantic consoles to mix albums anymore. One of the things that took up the real estate back in the day was, for every physical channel, you needed an inch or so and some electronics to go with that. And that could get big real fast. And, tape recorders took up a whole lot of space. Your racks of effects took up a whole lot of space. The one thing that space hasn't changed, except unless we're talking about the thing at the very beginning of this episode where you can mix in headphones, is your acoustics. Your room still needs to be big enough that your acoustics work. And that's kind of a pain. I'm in a small room right now. I'm able to mix in it with a lot of bass traps, but, that's part of the large equipment that I'd still like to see. I'd still like to see, a large tracking room. Luckily, I've got one for now. Hopefully, the no word doesn't end that for me. But that's the large equipment you still need. The rest of the large equipment you probably don't need. what's a good mic brand to go with for making music on YouTube for around 100 pounds? So I had to look it up. 100 pounds comes to about $130 US. I would love for you to be able to afford a multi-pattern microphone because you can learn so much stuff with that. But the only one I saw, I'll take a look at Sweetwater. The only one I really saw for cheap, and there'll be something like this from Thomann or whatever, however you say it, the European one that takes EU money. They have their own like T-Bone line or something. They'll probably have a multi-pattern one. But I see a Behringer C3 dual diaphragm condenser microphone that's got multi-patterns. But if you want to play this really safe, Audio-Technica has their Audio-Technica AT 2020 cardioid medium diaphragm condenser microphone. Now, you guys who want to hold your nose up over at this thing, it's a $100 microphone. We've told about this many times on the show. Vern Grainer is able to make these things sound unreal with acoustic guitars, with people talking. He uses them for broadcast, for speech, for instruments, whatever. I've seen people do incredible stuff with this for instruments. So if I were you, also, you don't have to worry about cloud lifters or anything. It's got plenty of level. You can get this thing for $100, which is much less than 100 pounds. And you could probably buy yourself a decent pop filter to go with it for that 130 pounds. I'd go and check this one out. Audio-Technica AT 2020 microphone. But like I said, almost anything will work. But these are really good for very cheap. Okay, what next is... How is Reaper as a DAW compared to FL Studio? I just installed Reaper to introduce myself to music production, but I'm planning on switching to FL Studio. Well, depends what you're trying to do, but I don't think it's an either or. Like we were talking earlier in this episode, FL Studio I think will still run as a VST inside Reaper. You can rewire them to each other. You can run reroute to get between them. So the strengths of Reaper you don't have to give up if you're using FL Studio, and the strengths of FL Studio you don't have to give up if you're using Reaper. You can use them together. All that said, I'm pretty sure they'll both kind of do the same kinds of things anymore, but I wouldn't say that as I think people have a much easier time creating MIDI music in FL Studio than they do in Reaper, and I think people have a much easier time mixing and editing audio in Reaper than they do in FL Studio. But again, I'm biased, but I wouldn't worry about if you really want to get FL Studio, go get it, and don't worry about not being able to use Reaper after that. You should be able to use them both together, no problem. Would you recommend mastering a studio recording? I'll just jump out, and my gut reaction say yes, of course you're going to get it mastered. Always get it mastered. You have to get it mastered. This is your final stage, and don't master it yourself. But I always have to ask, do I care whether my beliefs are true? And I do. And so I do have to ask myself and really think about, do I say that you have to master stuff and all the stuff that goes with it? Never master in the same room you mixed, never let the same engineer who mixed also master the album. All those rules, are they really true? I know that I have much better results when I send my songs off to be mastered by Matt Merman or Andrew Davenport. I know that my songs turn out 1 billion times better if I have them master it. But, maybe if I was better at doing it, it would turn out better. I don't know. But the short answer for me is yes. It's a small price to pay for your music to end up exactly how you need it when you go to send it to a radio station or streaming or whatever it is. All my confidence goes with them to finish that final stage, or to tell me that something's broken and I need to fix it and send it back to them. Definitely get it mastered. If you need some recommendations, again, Matthew Merman or Andrew Davenport. That's who I would recommend. On a powered speaker, is it better to turn up its volume pot or a fader on the mixer if you need more volume? This goes back to gain staging, and there's going to be some optimal level that a powered speaker expects to see, and that's probably going to be unity gain on your mixer. I'm a little scared when you say a fader on the mixer. I guess if it's the master fader on a PA system or whatever. But again, you want to have that thing around unity, and you want the volume pot on your powered speaker to be around unity probably. And so you're probably going to have like a control room send or something from your, like I'm using an RME ARC USB, so that I use that as a volume knob. You might have a PreSonus central station as a volume knob. You might have your control room output on an old mixer as the volume knob. Or like I said, if this is for a stage application, you'll have your master fader on your mixer. If you're using this for studio stuff, ideally you're going to set your powered speaker at unity gain, and hopefully it's got a unity gain setting. We have talked about unity gain before. If you really want to know what unity is and you can't find it, and you want to send me another question, we'll talk about it. But in general, you want your speaker at unity gain, and you want to be able to set your speaker controller up in some way that, if you go look at the K system by Bob Katz or whatever, somewhere around 82 to 85 decibels, so you know where that is. Mark that spot on your controller, and that's where you'd want to set this thing. Set the thing at unity, and then figure out where that is on your volume knob to get to that 82 to 85, so that you can always go back and compare things at the same volume. I have an 8-hour audio file. What's the easiest way to break it into 30-minute chunks? Drop it in Reaper, and then every 30 minutes hit S, or use some kind of script that counts to 30 minutes, or make a little marker region that's 30 minutes long and move it along to use it as a ruler, or change your time base for the ruler in Reaper to minutes and seconds, and then just mark off 30 minutes and just split it right there. That's of course because I'm biased and I'm telling you to use Reaper. Can I run low Z mics with this setup? Mic to non-USB mixer to PreSonus audio box to speakers without blowing something up? Yes. Mic to non-USB mixer to PreSonus audio box to speakers. Yeah. The only thing you might blow up is if you plug the mic in, especially if it's got phantom power while the speakers are up all the way. That might blow something up, but other than that, don't worry about it. You're plugging in the way you're supposed to plug in, so that'll be fine. Just don't have your speakers blasting all the way up when you turn things on. Would Reaper still be as highly recommended if it were to cost as much as some other DAWs, e.g. Ableton Live 10? Yes. If you remember the reasons for creating Reaper, I always had a brand new Pro Tools HD setup, which is the most expensive DAW at the time, probably still is, and sitting in my room all the time. It wasn't about the money, it was about the functionality. I couldn't do what I wanted to do in the existing DAWs, so Reaper would still be as highly recommended. If it was the most expensive DAW out there, I'd still recommend it because it's the DAW to use for me. At the time, it had a lot of things that you couldn't do in other DAWs. I don't think that's actually true now. I think, for the most part, DAWs kind of do the same thing. I still like the way Reaper does it. It definitely runs more efficiently than any other DAW. I think that's still true. It's updated a lot more, I would think. It's very robust. The manufacturer is behind it all the time. And if you're really having a problem with Reaper, let me know, and I'll pass the word along and do some nudging. How well does Reaper stack up to the Pro Tools standard? Okay, this one, if you remember, long before Reaper was made, I used to rant in the forums about this whole idea of the Pro Tools standard. Pro Tools is not a standard. Go to any standards organizations out there, DAW, AES, EBU, even National Association of Music Merchants. What do we call it? Not ASCII. Is it ASCII? No, ANSI. Go to any Standards Institute and tell me where it is that Pro Tools is a standard. There are standards out there. Wave, I'd say VST is a standard. You tell it how to make it, but really standards are definitions that you use to create products to work a certain way, so it'll be fully compatible with something else. Pro Tools is not a standard. It may be the music marketing shill standard or whatever it used to be. And, you might know my experience with that. It was kind of an insane situation. But it's not a standard. It's not a standard. It's not a standard. It's not a standard. Go find a standards org and show me where what it's a standard of. How well does Reaper stack up to it? Like we were just talking about a second ago. We always had a brand new Pro Tools system sitting there, and I would use Reaper. Not to rehash too much, but the very first picture that, the first time I actually got to meet Justin Frankel in real life, we were using a Trident mixer, a real Trident, not a TSM, not a, it was a real Trident. We were using it as a volume stand to hold up a laptop and a volume control so that I could plug a laptop into some big Augsburger speakers, and there's a Pro Tools system sitting right there, not even turned on. So that's how well it stands up. I'll take Reaper every single time for a variety of reasons, but I would say Reaper beats the crap out of Pro Tools. What is Reaper software used for? It's used for recording and editing and mixing audio. I know people are using it for video stuff too, a lot more now, but I'd still say something like Vegas is going to be better for your video stuff. What are the best sounding dynamic microphones besides the Shure 57 and 58? Man, there's so many good ones. We had to buy some cheap microphones for the school due to the current situation. We had to make sure everybody had their own microphone and people weren't breathing into other people's microphones. And we tried those Behringer XM8500s. They were great. There's tons of good microphones out there. The best sounding dynamic microphones, well, it depends what you're doing with it. I have a set of ATM 230s that I use for kick and tom mics and sometimes snare mics. I think those are better for that application. I have a Beta 56 I use for snare. I think that's better for that application. An Audix D6 for a kick drum, I think would be better in a 57 or 58. So it really depends what you're doing. A lot of people prefer the Sennheiser like 835s and 935s for handheld vocals. So it really depends what you're doing. There's not best sounding is a hard one. If you want to talk about measurable parameters, we can send me a question and we'll really get more specific, but it really depends what you're looking for. Next is when opening an old project with all the same VSTs loaded, why does Reaper tell me the following effects were in the project file and are not available? Are you absolutely sure it's the same VSTs? I have a feeling that things got updated or something and now it's seeing them as not compatible. One of the ones that happens a lot is when Steinberg forced everybody to go to VST3, and maybe you think you still got the same effects, but you really don't. It's they've been changed to VST3 and they're a little bit different. So that's probably what's happening there. So sorry about that. Let me know if it's one of our plugins. We'll figure out a way to get it open. What is the difference between a regular microphone and an XLR microphone? I would contend that an XLR microphone would be a regular microphone that you see in the studio. But, they're probably talking about a high Z, high impedance karaoke microphone that's got again, what we talked about earlier, a tip sleeve kind of signal, a 1/4 inch jack or an 1/8 inch jack or something instead of an XLR jack. To me, an XLR microphone is going to mean a microphone with a balanced output that's meant to go into a standard mic preamp. So that's the difference. Let me know if that wasn't clear enough. Why is Reaper DAW not as popular? God, there's a lot of Reaper questions. Why is Reaper DAW not as popular in the market as it can be? No advertising, for one thing. There's some reasons for that, but I think it's as popular as it needs to be. Does it need to be any more popular? I don't know. I see a lot of wrong answers to this. I see a lot of people say that it's not easy for noobs to use. I don't think that's true at all. I don't know if there's a person on this planet who's in person taught more people how to use Reaper than I have, but I haven't seen it. I put it this way, and I've said this a lot. If you're new to DAWs in general, I don't think you're going to have any problems with Reaper. If you're already used to using another DAW and you have to switch to Reaper, that's where I see all the problems come in. I've never seen an example of a noob saying that they're having trouble using Reaper. I always see people say that, but it's always people who are used to using another DAW. You might notice Reaper only has one mouse tool. So if you're used to having to switch between mouse tools constantly in another DAW like Pro Tools or Cubendo or whatever, it's going to seem weird in Reaper that everything is done with that one tool. But that's just one example. Things are going to get a little bit different in Reaper. I think it takes less clicks to do things in it, so you might just not be used to it. But go ahead, flame away. What software can you use to record and edit a podcast? Again, I'm going to be snarky, but Reaper was made with podcasting in mind. But I see tons and tons and tons and tons of videos and audio and posts about using Audacity to record and edit podcasts. So I'm sure you're free to do that. It's or Wavesaur, I would say. But really, then again, like we were saying, Cakewalk is free now too. So I'd use Reaper, but again, I'm biased. What's something I can use not to make ASIO glitch? Settings. It's all up to the settings. You might have there might be some hardware incompatibilities. You might not have a real ASIO driver, but in general, ASIO is glitching because of some settings. Usually, maybe your buffer's too low. Of course, try the latency, the Resplendence latency monitor or C-Entrance latency test utility. Is that right anymore? Let me make sure that's still latency monitoring tool. So let's see. There used to be one called, I think it's latency monitoring. Sorry, latency mon, Resplendence latency mon, that's one of them. I think there's a couple other ones now though, but these are devices you run in your system, and you just watch and see if it'll if you get a glitch or some kind of DPC latency checker. That's another one. DPC latency. Here it is. So the guys who write the drivers for most everything, they write the PreSonus driver, or not PreSonus. They might write PreSonus. I'm not sure. They definitely write Behringer, SSL, Audient, and several others. The Sycon. They have a thing called DPC latency checker, and that is a good way to see if they got something that's really making trouble in your system. And if you need any help with that, this is kind of a specific thing. I can get on Skype or whatever with you and just let me know. Oh, is there a difference between 16-bit 96 kilohertz and 24-bit 48 kilohertz? If so, which one is better and for what reason? There is a difference. One's 16-bit and one's 24-bit. One's 96 kilohertz and one's 48 kilohertz. We can get into all that arguing over sample rates and bring up all the old Nika Aldrich stuff and everything else. But in general, I would use the 48 kilohertz 24-bit or 44 kilohertz 24-bit. I wouldn't go to 96 kilohertz unless I had a very, very good reason. Yes, you got a little bit more room for the anti-aliasing filter, but chances are if you're asking this question, you are not in a position to need what 96 kilohertz might might possibly have to offer. And you definitely wouldn't want to go to 16 bits instead of 24 bits. So take the 24-bit 48 kilohertz. Okay, and when audio recording, how close should the microphone be to the sound source? I don't want it to be too snarky, but as close as it needs to be. You know, for consistency's sake, I will put cymbal mics. I learned this from Bill Matoyer. I'll put cymbal mics one shaka away from the cymbal. So the capsule is one, hold your hand out in the shaka position, and that goes from the cymbal. The reason we do that is just to be have a consistent kind of sound from one cymbal to the other. But your distance between your microphone and your source decides how much direct sound is coming in versus how much room sound is coming in. If you got an especially noisy room, like you hear my chair keep squeaking around and stuff, if I was really far away, of course I could still turn up the gain to make up for how you lose level from being far away, but I might end up with too much noise in my, I probably already have too much noise in my microphone, but you know, the noisier your room, the closer the sound source you want to be from the microphone in general. And of course, so the further away you move your mic, the quieter the signal gets, or the quieter the direct signal gets anyway. The room signal will still be just as loud. So what's really true is that the level of direct to room sound ratio changes. But for practicality's sake, the farther you move your mic away from your source, the quieter your source will be. Now you also have to watch out for distortion. How close can you be with that mic before it starts to distort? How much noise does the mic make by itself? And then the last thing is, the closer you get, depending on your polar pattern, you may have a thing called proximity effect. And that means that, not only does the mic signal in general get louder the closer you get to it, but the bass frequency component of your mic gets louder the closer you get to it when you get to a certain point. And you can use this proximity effect the way we do, like by close miking toms and kick drums and snares and things like that, or even vocals. If you know how to work a mic, you work the proximity effect of that mic as well. So it gets bassier as you get closer. You'll see this with the common example was female singers with their kind of whispery tones. They'd move in so that when they actually did sing, you'd have this really deep, well, they call it sultry, right? But yeah, this proximity effect. So that's going to tell you how close you want to be. Do you want proximity effect or not? And that's all the questions in my box. Thankfully, I kind of let these sit for too long, so it should be a little bit shorter next time. So I will see you guys next week. See you later.